Hey, how can you save money on your energy bill if you plan on using the air conditioner this summer? We have invited Stephen Stewart back with us. Stephen is an expert on honest AC repair. He's from Southern Comfort Mechanical, and he's joining us now on Portland's Afternoon News. Welcome back, Stephen.
Hey, thanks for having me back again, Tim.
Does it ever make sense to turn your AC off when you're not home if you're trying to make your system last?
I'm going to say it depends. If you're going to work and coming back again, I would say no. The only time I would suggest that that would make sense if you're leaving home for several days a week, something like that. Uh, what you can do to save energy in that case is probably set the thermostat back by 2 or 3 degrees. That way, it will maintain the humidity levels, the temperature a bit, and then we'll be able to recover when you get back home again by dropping it back to your target temperature. During the day, that heat continues to build up in your home and that humidity. So, if it rises 10 degrees, 15 degrees, it's got to do all that work to bring it down. It's going to take a while. And it's probably going to consume similar amount of energy, if not more, and make it work hard to get there.
Yeah, sounds like a sort of six of one, half dozen of another. And I would imagine, too, it also depends on, whether you have something that is temperature sensitive in your home, whether it be pets or some sort of inanimate object, but, it's still temperature
Yeah.
sensitive. So will turning off your air conditioner in the afternoon save you money?
I'm going to say it depends on where you are in the country. I'm not familiar with your rate schedule. Here in Texas, where we're based, it doesn't make that much of a difference. But I understand, for example, like Arizona, the rates are through the roof in the afternoon. So they crank the temperature down in the morning and switch it off on the afternoon. I'm not sure which way, those energy rates work in your area.
Gotcha. Just joining us here on Portland's Afternoon News, we're talking to air conditioning expert Stephen Stewart, and we are discussing how you can get the most out of your air conditioner, how you can run it most efficiently, and save yourself some money as well. Stephen, what about AC tune-ups? I mean, we see and hear ads all the time encouraging us to have our systems tuned up. Is that really a necessary expense?
I would recommend it, yes. And in terms of the expense, I'll come back to that. But a good tune-up, it's like we say, oil change on your car. There's parts there that where dirt builds up and starts to restrict the airflow. So I'm a huge proponent of having that done twice a year, once on your AC system, once on your heating system. But in terms of the different levels, so you'll see, I don't know, in our area here, specials start at maybe $50 up through to 150, $200 for those different things. Uh, what's included in those, like a $40 checkup, is very quick in and out, and it's probably not going to be that deep an inspection. Uh, Whereas you really want a more thorough one. So, for example, I would say ours is on the more thorough side, but that's where we start on the inside. Check your thermostat. Are there any error codes that are popping up? As a homeowner, you may see some of those. There may be some that are buried inside the thermostat. Then from there, it's checking the drain line. Here in Texas, it's run through to a bathroom sink, so they're designed to clog. So it's making sure that that's free and clear. Then opening up the unit, making sure the filter's clean or changing that filter. From there, then checking the amp draw on the motor, make sure that's within range. If it's out of specification, that's going to consume a lot more energy. Check that it's clean. There's a thing called a blower wheel. If it gets a lot of buildup on there, that's going to make it run less efficiency. And then checking the wiring, and that's good. Then from there, it's going outside and looking at the outdoor unit, which is either a heat pump or condenser, checking the operating pressures on that, making sure that they're in range. From there, then it's checking over the electrical, this thing called a capacitor in there, which is like a battery, checking the motor amp draw and the compressor, making sure that those are in range. If they're out of range, rather than consuming 4 or 5 amps an hour, that's going to be double, triple that, so consuming a lot more energy. And then in the end, it's rinsing off that condenser to make sure that the air can flow through there. So that's a deeper, thorough check and then getting a report on that to say what are those conditions and how well is that unit running at the time. So that's what I would call is ideally what you want, and that's going to be on that price range. There's going to be some discounts and specials depending on how busy people are or how much they need to find and do maybe the hard sell to make that worth their time.
Yeah, no, too. My wife has us regularly scheduled to change our air filters in the house, the intake filters for the system. And I think we do that like every 30 to 60 days or something along
Yeah.
those lines. But she actually keeps a supply of the filters out in the garage, and we go out and break one out and change out the filters every so often. So what I guess I'm getting at is there are things that the homeowner should be doing to try and get the most out of the unit as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and to build on your point, so there's I'd say two key things the homeowner can do if they're not ready or can't afford to invest in that maintenance is keeping that filter regularly changed. Uh, and then the other one is rinsing off or hosing off the condenser. I would say there's going to be YouTube links and so forth out there. I shared a couple if you want to use those. Uh, but I would say keeping that filter clean is key to that airflow through the indoor system. That's the number one cause of breakdowns. And the way that happens is it gets restricted. It's like putting a face mask on and an extra face mask and keep layering them up until it's pretty much blocked. That then reduces the airflow so that the motor's working harder, using more energy, but reduces the flow of air. There's call it refrigerator, the evaporator coil in there. It's going to start freezing up because it's designed to have that air flowing. I would say if it doesn't get enough airflow, that's going to freeze up, which then, due to thermal expansion, etc., that's our contraction that's going to cause things to break. So you end up into a much deeper repair because it's leaking freon, not cooling, etc. And similar goes for that outdoor, making sure that it's hosed off, clean, that the air can flow through there and cool down your freon.
And you just mentioned Freon. Obviously, there is a school of thought in regards to Freon that it's not good for the environment. So units still use that? Is that pretty standard?
Yes. So to see, we have two freons on the go. Two primary. There's a number out there. So there's R22, and that was phased out. I think it was December 31st, 2019 or 18. I could be off on the date. So it's no longer being manufactured. That was harmful to the ozone layer. That was superseded by 410A, which is the new Freon. So R22 is the expensive one at the moment. It's only available in recycled form. It's still available, but the price keeps chunking up. So supply chain plus availability is, we'll say, compounding or whatever to continue to make that more expensive. It will keep getting more expensive over time.
Before we let you go, I wanted to ask you, is a typical AC unit or a heat pump, are those things like cars? They have a limited mileage. You get, a car 100, 150,000 miles out of a car. You can only expect so many years out of, or hours out of a heat pump or an AC unit?
I'm going to say yes, and there is a huge bell curve on there. I would say. So the average age of what I see in terms of replacement here at our company is around 12, 13 years is typically the age that they're getting changed out at. We do see systems that are 30 plus years old. The key difference on those is they have been looked after. They've been well maintained, I would say, and it's maybe just an efficiency thing, or there's a key part that breaks down that it's obsolete. So I'd say they're not quite built like they used to be as they've got more efficient. They're, we say, much more on a knife edge, we say, and probably not lasting just as long as they did years ago. So that's sort of, that lifespan, but being well maintained, a system will go for a long period of time. On the shorter end, we see either they've been badly installed, the most important day of a system's life is day number one, making sure there was a good install, it's clean, the airflow is set up correctly, and it's not being choked off or restricted, and then being kept clean. So if things aren't, well maintained, people are going to start running into a lot of serious, costly issues from year 5 onwards.
Yeah. Is it acceptable to do something simple like hose down an AC unit, or is that bad for the components?
No, that's good as long as you don't get the electrical components in the compartment wet. But it rains on them all the time. I would say so. Just taking a garden hose. Do not use a pressure washer. The fins are quite sensitive to high pressure. By using a garden hose with, we say, just some light pressure going back and forward, rinsing out those fins until the water may be brown to start with, and then over I don't know 5 minutes or so, it will clear up and be clear. That's good for it.
Is there anything new coming on the market as far as retrofitting is concerned that existing homeowners should be aware of? Because I know in the Pacific Northwest, a lot of homes have never had air conditioning, but we've had some warm summers, warmer than usual summers, and a lot of people are thinking about installing AC. Is there an easy way to go about that these days?
An easy way, I would say, there's some new types of window units that have come out from Medea in the last year or so. I'm not sure on the cost of those, but they're, I'm going to say a step change compared to the prior type,
Mm-hmm.
that are easier to fit in there. We'll say designed to be easier to fit and look more like a saddle, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The way they hang over the windowsill and don't take up quite as much of the window opening, and
But I guess
much easier to install.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm asking though is it easy to retrofit an older home with an AC system? Is that even doable?
It is doable. In that case, I would probably recommend using a thing called a ductless or a mini split system. There's there's a heat pump that sits outside, works in the typical way a regular heat pump does. Inside, we'll say it all happens in, call it the head. So that either mounts on the wall, which may be the common one that you've seen, but there's different configurations of. There's some that fit in the ceiling, which are much more cosmetically friendly. There's some that mount on the floor, so there's some different combinations of those that can be retrofitted. So if I was to start from scratch, I would install a mini split system into a home versus trying to put all that ductwork under or above the home.
And is that a pricey option to have a home retrofitted?
I'm going to say it depends on the number of heads. If you're doing one outdoor condenser with one head, then it's probably a bit cheaper than a whole new system. And then from there, it depends on the number of heads or rooms that you're going to install stuff in. So I would say it's about parity. It depends on. So it can get more expensive than ductwork. But if you're trying to retrofit it, it may be parity or slightly cheaper.
And when you say heads, you're talking about what, the outlets, the vents where the cooler air comes in?
Yeah, so if you can imagine those boxes that go on the walls, so you've maybe seen them in garages or other places, but there's some different combinations of those. I call them heads, but the cooling system. So the Freon flows into those so that they do all of the heating and cooling inside that unit.
Gotcha.
Indoor, on the wall, or in the ceiling.
Well, you've done an excellent job of educating us, and we've got to, for our radio listeners, we've got to run right now, but there's a lot more to this conversation. All you have to do is head over to KXL.com. You're going to want to go to the podcast tab at the top of the page and then scroll down to Portland's Afternoon News for the rest of the conversation with air conditioning expert Stephen Stewart. Stephen, thanks once again for being with us here on Portland's Afternoon News.
Yeah, thank you.